Hey, happy Focus Friday. Today, we're going to talk about some apps and tools that can help you get stuff done throughout your day. I'm going to share some of my personal favorites, so hopefully they help you with your productivity as well. But before you figure out what apps are going to even be helpful to you, you actually need to know what you need help with. Like, are you someone who forgets a lot of things or needs regular reminders so that way you can keep up with your to-do list? Or is it more that you lack the focus to be able to get things done? Nailing this down will really help you figure out which tools, which apps are going to help you the most and be of most benefit to you. I'm going to share my personal favorites within kind of 4 different buckets. I've got some suggestions for just managing your tasks. I've got suggestions for taking notes, for tracking your time, and then for communicating effectively with others. So let's get into it. For managing your tasks, there are a few apps that I have tried out that I have liked and have used in different seasons of my life. So you've got Todoist, that's pretty basic and pretty easy to use. The next one is Trello. Trello is more for like the visual learners and the more kinesthetic learners that like to move their tasks from kind of buckets and boxes. I think they're called boards. But that's another option for you. Another app is Asana. That's pretty popular in the corporate sector for project management. And then more recently, I've been using ClickUp, which is a little bit more complicated. Complex, I should say. There's a lot more features to it, but what I like is that it speaks to Google Drive pretty easily. You can collaborate on documents while also having your to-do list. You can break down what your task management looks like based on your own preferences. So you can see like the timeline version, you can see it as a list version. It's really a multifaceted app that you can use, and it has a great web presence as well, because sometimes, at least for us millennials, we know that there are just things that need big internet, not small internet on our phone. But for task management, don't also underestimate the power of the good old bullet journal or writing down a to-do list on a piece of notepad or having sticky notes. That may be a method that works for you, and sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you may need to kind of flip-flop and go from a digital app to a more analog or old school method for your task management. So don't underestimate those things, because sometimes we need to mix it up and keep things fresh within our brains to help us with our processes. Now, for note taking, I love to keep it pretty simple here. I am a huge fan of the Google Suite. You'll hear me talk about Google all the time, but Google Docs are really my go-to for anything document related. That's where I keep all of my docs. I like that it's free. You get a good amount of storage for free. I like that it's a great collaborative tool so that you can share docs with other people and have them edit them, or you could just share it with them to download. Another thing that I really like about Google is that it keeps the history. So it keeps track of all the different versions of your documents in case you need to go back to an older version for whatever reason. But another recent fan favorite of mine now is GoodNotes. So I have downloaded the GoodNotes app on my phone, but also on my iPad, and I use it to take notes, to write things down. That's where I put my journal. What I like about it is that it's a digital version of still being able to do that pen to paper action. So I'm still able to physically write out in my handwriting my notes or my thoughts. And that process is very therapeutic for me, but I don't have to carry around like all these different notebooks and different physical things. Like, I can access it on my phone, I can access it on my iPad. Another great thing about GoodNotes is that you can import PDF files into GoodNotes and then write on them. So like, I sell my digital daily planner, and I'm able to download that PDF and put it into GoodNotes and use it every single day. So if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I post on my stories my 135 every day, and it has kind of ebbed and flowed and evolved in what that looks like. But now I use my digital daily planner, and it's kind of fun because I still get to write, I can highlight and color code my calendar just like I like to do, but I don't actually have to have that physical planner with me at all times. And let's say you want to track your time to kind of know how you're spending your time. There is an app, it's called Toggle, that you can use to track how you're spending your time, what you're spending time on doing, and that way you can kind of go back and reflect on, are you using your time the most effectively or efficiently way possible? So that's an option. But then there's just the old school version of like, I mean, I don't know if anybody has kitchen timers these days, but you could use that. You could use your phone and just kind of keep track while you're doing like a Pomodoro technique, which, as a reminder on that, Pomodoro technique is when you work for a certain kind of sprint of time, usually about 25 minutes, and then you take a 25-minute break. So you could, while you're kind of keeping track of your Pomodoro sessions, you could kind of jot down just on a notepad or in your journal or whatever, keep notes of what you worked on during those 25-minute sprints. When it comes to communicating effectively with others, I know a lot of us have to work with a lot of different colleagues, and communication is so important with that. And especially if you're having to have kind of virtual communication, there are so many tools out there. We know what exists out there, right? But Slack is huge. I like Slack because it also connects with a lot of other apps. So there's a great piece there. What I also love about Slack is that you can schedule messages to go out at a different time. So sometimes, like whenever I was using Slack pretty regularly in my 9 to 5, I would think of something like first thing in the morning at 8 a.m., but I had a colleague that worked in Central Time, so she didn't start her day until like my 10 a.m. And so I didn't want to bother her while she was enjoying her morning. So I would just schedule it for a little bit later in the day when I knew she would be in the office. I love that feature. And honestly, if Apple is listening, hello out there. If Apple is listening, I would really love to be able to do that with text messages as well, because I wake up at 5 a.m. A lot of people send me messages at 10, 11 p.m. and I'm already in bed. My phone has already been on Do Not Disturb. And I want to respond to them at 5 a.m. But I don't want to bother them in case they don't have their phone on Do Not Disturb, or maybe I just don't want them knowing that I was up at 5 a.m. checking my phone. So I would love if Apple would allow for text messages to be scheduled send as well. I digress. Anyways, back to communicating. So Slack, communication tool, great. There's also WhatsApp. Google has a messaging feature too. That's actually one of the things of Google that I'm not like a huge fan of. So you won't hear me ranting and raving about that one. And then there's like Microsoft Teams and all that. So there's a bunch of different communication platforms that work. But I also want to caution us to not always rely on that digital communication. There is something to be said for picking up the phone and calling someone to talk to them about something. Sometimes that's going to be the most efficient way to get something accomplished or get your question answered. Plus, it just helps with that human connection, which I think we're lacking sometimes in this world. But then, if you're someone like me, I don't always love talking on the phone. Hello, introverted personality. But there's also voice memos. So I have become a huge fan of voice memos as well, because it still gives me the benefit of being able to message someone without having to call them and have them answer and kind of be on the same schedule with them. But I don't have to sit there with my thumbs and text a huge long message. So voice memos are also a great option for that as well. And you can actually use voice memos for note taking too, which I really like to do sometimes. I will like dictate my notes. Like if I'm in the car and something comes in my mind, I will ask Siri to go ahead and take notes for me and dictate a message. And I'll either text it to myself or put it in a doc or do whatever I need to do. So that way I don't lose that thought just because I couldn't pick up my phone and type it out into whatever app or tool I'm using. The biggest thing is to just try different apps, different tools to see what's going to work for you, and to recognize that sometimes what worked for you in the past, like for me, Trello used to be my jam, may not work for you in the future or in the present moment. And that's okay. Like, it's all about trying things out. Plus, like, new apps and tools come out every single day. And so I don't know about you, but I like to try new things and see what works. And if it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. Like, you just maybe wasted a few days of your life. But at the end of the day, you're figuring out what works for you. So anyways, I hope you either heard about some new tools or at least thought about ways to manage your days a little bit differently or a little bit better based on my own personal favorites. And if you have any tools or apps that you use on a regular basis that you'd like to share, please definitely share them with the group, because we could all learn from one another in this. Anyways, I hope that you have an awesome weekend since it's Friday, and I'm wishing you another week filled with more hot successes than hot messes. Happy Focus Friday, y'all.